We are here with Adur Gopalakrishnan. What makes it pivotal really is that as time passes, we are left with one of those rare personalities who is not only a great filmmaker, but in many ways is a student of two totally different traditions of filmmaking. One, of course, is the tradition of Satyajit Ray, and the other is that he's actually a student of Hrithik Ghatak from the Film and Television Institute. He was in his second year when I think he met Hrithik there for the first time. I met Adur also at the Film Institute when I was a student there, and now it's been about 40 years and we keep on meeting off and on at various film festivals, and it's always a joy. For me, my regard and affection for him was initiated when I watched his films at the Institute, and every time I meet him, my regard and affection for him just keeps on growing. Adur, if we might start this conversation with that moment, I think, at the Film Institute, when you might have come across Hrithik there for the first time. And I was wondering that as a student, what might have been your first impressions of him?
It was my second year in the Film Institute. It was not Film and Television yet. It was Film Institute, and then in 1963, and it was 1 year into studies in filmmaking, and we started, as students, we started hearing about Hrithik Ghatak. And we had several stories. Always these stories, whether they were exaggerated or true, but then that gave the opportunity for discussions. One of the most quoted instance about Hrithik at that time was, it seems he was introducing his producer, not the producer who made Siddharth, who is here, not him, but one of his old producers. It seems he introduced this person to the friends and was introducing his producer to the others, saying, "Here is the lamb I have sacrificed on the altar of cinema." That was a fantastic introduction to the producer. I hope the producer did not take offense, and perhaps he enjoyed it, but that was a fact. He openly kind of admitted. So we were, as students, we were very curious to see Hrithik Ghatak, and I heard, and one day we heard that he was coming as our professor of direction and also the vice principal of the institute. We were very excited. We wanted to see him because the stories about him had come much earlier to us. There was the talk about the person in the film circles. So he came, and he was very much different from any teacher around, because he had made a couple of films by that time. I think he had made his later films by that time, like Megha Taketara and the Subarna. These two films, and then also Ajantik was there, and Bharati Bali also was made, and I have not seen Nagarik. Nagarik was made much earlier, but that film was not available at that time. Otherwise, while he was there, whatever films he had made until then, they were shown. The most important part of his teaching was not in telling us about the theory of cinema, not at all. What was most important was what he talked about his own films. After the screening of the films, he would tell us why he took a shot this way, why not the other way, the regular conventional way, etc. This was great teaching for us, great learning for us. So we saw in Cuttack a filmmaker who was so different from Ray. Ray was somebody who was meticulous about everything. And as years passed, when I saw the work of the both masters, I realized that Ray was distinctly different because he came from the background of painting. That's very important to understand the work of Ray. And Cuttack came from the background of theatre. This was the undercurrent of their work in cinema. And it is not very often discovered, this part of the thing. Why is it that they are so different? And each of them had a lot of respect for the other. Each of them. I still remember when after screening Abhirajito in the class, even while the film was on, he shouted to us while the sequence was on the screen, that, look, here is great cinema. Now, that kind of appreciation he had for Ray, and Ray also very famously said that Cuttack had cinema running in his veins. He told me once, personally he told me once. So that kind of admiration they have for each other. Whereas the legends that are spread, thought, very deliberately attributed that both of them were adversaries. Far from it. They had different approaches, different ways of making films, and each of them were excellent in their real endeavor. This is what, because we learned a lot as students in the institute, we learned a lot from Ray. In the same way, we learned a lot about Cuttack also and his work also. So, for a film student, it was very important to look at works of art, particularly of cinema, from different angles. And another thing I noticed was, as against the rumors that spread, beyond what you mentioned that this man was always drunk. Far from it. I've never seen him drunk in the classroom. Never, not even once. So, in fact, he was staying within the institute campus. He had this guest room on the first floor of the main building. That one room was, allotted to him, and he stayed there, all alone. But of course, some of the students, like particularly my friends, Kumar Sahani and Manikavan, they were constants, in their presence there. So in the classroom, he was professor of direction, and we were 5 or 6 people, students in the classroom. And so it was almost like one to one, one to the other. And the classroom was like conversations, not like from a pulpit that you talk and then you listen and go. It's not like that. So if we wanted, we could ask questions. He will always be prepared to answer. And one strange thing happened while he was at the institute. There was one senior student, one R.N. Shukla. He was making his diploma film. And as you know, Cuttack was recommended by Satyajit Ray to Mrs. Indira Gandhi for appointment at the film institute, because after a few failures, he had no work in Calcutta, and he was, Ray tried to help him. He said, he recommended his name to Indira Gandhi for appointment there, and that's how he happened to be posted. And Katak was someone who wouldn't imagine that he can be, doing nothing except making films. He cannot imagine that. And he was so excited to supervise this film by Shukla. They went to a place, Kerala Caves, the film was shot there. And literally the film was shot by Katak, while the student stood there watching. And the Kerala Caves, he created a great mood there. This film called, this was a rendezvous of a boy and girl meeting at the Kerala Caves. And she arrives there early, and then she's really overwhelmed by the nature and the beauty of it. And he uses the camera angles and certain music as the background, his own creation, his own composition. All this is his own. And then by the time the boy arrives and when they meet, she's no more interested in the boy. She just quietly vanishes. And that's the film, Rendezvous. But it's all Katak's work. So it was, actually when the filmography of Katak was prepared, people very graciously listed this film also as his work. Although it was not, if you look at it, it was not a fair thing to do. In place of the student, he took over and then made the film. So it was almost a scandal within the institute. So I can imagine, somebody like Katak cannot imagine watching somebody else shooting and making a film. He has to do it. That was the kind of passion we had. So in retrospect, you cannot blame him because it is very natural for him. So what we got from him was a lot of excitement about cinema, a lot of wonder about cinema, a lot of dedication to cinema, a great level of passion for cinema. This is what we imbibed from him, I think. As students, it was great, infusion of these things. And the way he talked about other films, like international films, and he was a great admirer of the Spanish filmmaker, Buñuel. He was a great admirer. And his favorite film was Nazarene. He talked at length about the film Nazarene in the class. Actually, at that time, at that age, at that initial stage of my watching films, I did not see much greatness in the film. But then much later, I revisited Nazarene. And I told myself, my God, it was such a great film. Why didn't I appreciate it the way I am doing now? It was such a great film. And again, his views about other filmmakers were very, very, very sharp. He thought, of course, the Swedish filmmaker Ingmar Bergman, he did not approve of him. Approve of his religiosity. That was the problem. He says it is fake. He is quietly dismissing it, fake. Whereas I at that time I thought it must be fake. But then much later again I discovered his religiosity was not fake. He was very much as important a filmmaker as the Buñuel, see. So his judgments about things were cut and dry. There was no compromise. That was his attitude. And there can be many instances about Katak which I can remember and narrate. I should not go on with that. But I learned basically in those days I kept record. The the importance of using sound. Until then, in fact, until Kathak made his film, or until Ray made his film, the sound meant only the dialogue spoken by the artist. And they kept speaking all the time. Like theatre, from beginning to end they will be talking. And the music meant that you will have some instrument playing in the background. That is background score. So this, we don't hear any other sound except when a car, a horn or something is there in the shot, within the shot. Then you hear the sound. Otherwise there is no other sounds we listen to. Whereas in the real life, we live in the midst of so many sounds. But which sound will we use? This I have discovered that it is the psychological use of sound that we should use. There is a lot of noise. How will you distinguish, real sound from noise? This is a very great lesson. So he knew the importance of using sound. Again, I believe it came from the theatre. For instance, the particular those sequences where this lady of Meghatha Katara, when she is climbing down the steps, in the background you hear the flashes. It is not part of the scene at all. It is something extraneous he uses. I found a great use of sounds in the cinema, but I never use extraneous sounds for the sound effect. I never do that. I also came to cinema from theatre, because before I joined the Film Institute, I was a theatre person. I was a playwright, actor, director, and all that. So I have transformed myself to a filmmaker after my exposure to these great filmmakers from all over the world, especially when it came to India. Ray and Kathak became our real masters. Not to imitate them, but to get inspired by them. That is important.
If I might share with you something here, when Adur talks about the thing that I'm not really discussing theory. This was something true for all his students. Mani Kaul, with whom I've worked, Kumar Shani, with whom I've worked also. At the Film Institute, we had our head of direction, who was Rahat Yusufi. And as you might imagine, we were in our second year. And of course, we would stay awake till about 3, 4 in the morning, chatting, speaking with each other. And we would go to sleep at about 4 a.m. and wake up at about 8. One night actually, or one morning, at 4 a.m., there was a banging at our door. And it was the head of direction, it was Rahat Yusufi. And he pulled all us direction students out. And we had just gone to bed 5 minutes ago. And he took us down, and then right behind the institute is a hill. And there is a small Hanuman Mandir up there. We had been there, but he took us now at about 4:30 a.m. We went up. And he took us to the edge of the hill and he said, sit down. So we thought, oh no, he's going to make us watch the sunrise, So we sat down. He came behind us and he said, look, that is where the sun rises, right in front of you. What I want you to look at is down at the grass between your legs. And as the light becomes slowly it rises, the light. See what happens to the grass. See how the color of the grass changes. See how the shape and forms change. And I think there is this beauty that Ritikda handed over to his students, that he made you see things in a different way. I'll give you just one example. If you think of Subarnarekha, and you think of one of the first moments that we see Sita in that film, Madhuri ji, she is amongst the rocks, and she has on this really fragile sari. What does it do to a human figure? Just think for a moment. amongst this really strong, hardy, powerful rocks, and a really fragile, delicate woman in a very delicate sari amongst the rocks. All right. It is an image which is incredible because it is not an image simply of contrast. It is an image that is telling us much more about water and hardness, luminousness, femininity, masculinity. It all comes in a single image, and so gently. We were just talking about sound, Adur, and I was wondering if in all the works of Hrithik Da that you have seen, there might be a certain moment that you remember, that you go back to and you say, that is something, perhaps I've taken something from them.
No, I realized the importance of sound, but I didn't ever imagine that I would want any of those sounds to be in my film. No. I have been very particular that as I said, I use the sounds, but not extraneous sounds. The sound has to emanate from the visuals that you see. Not necessarily that time, but then any time in the film, because you have an association built, and then you recall it. That's where I use it. But the importance of sound, I really learned from Hrithik Da, and that is still so.
What about his image making or his editing?
Great images, and the compositions, the cutting, the abrupt cuttings, they all add to the dramaturgy of the whole thing. He very intentionally, he did these abrupt cuttings because the abrupt cuts became fashionable after, Godha. He only did it, as a part of the filmmaking, but much earlier, Cutter had done it. Yes, there is no way of smooth transition, nothing like that. He never bothered about it. The immediacy could be established with the abrupt cuttings, and also the shock of it. Yeah.
I mean, Hrithik Da talks about Jukti Tako Gapo.
Yes.
And I think this kind of editing that he uses is precisely this. It's Jukti, that you're telling a certain story. It's a tako, it's an argument. You don't just tell the story, you argue with it.
Yes.
All right. And it's a gapo, you have a conversation.
Yes.
And that is why, to me, in the whole tradition of Indian filmmaking, I feel that there is no other filmmaker who had as much a concern and a care for the audience. He wanted not the film to be complete in itself. He wanted us to do Jukti Tako Gapo with his films. I was wondering, Adu.
Actually, this that reminds me of this book by our Nobel laureate. The economist. Amartya Sen. He talks about an argumentative Indian. That it is there in Cutter's work. That's Tako is that.
Indeed.
Jukti, Tako, or Gapo. So it is there at the very base of it. Sorry, I interrupted you. Yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you that one of the things that we see in your films, and it stays with me from Swayamvaram, your very first film. What stays with me is the kind of grace of your actors. All of them, no matter whether they are on the dark side or the luminous side, there is a certain grace each one of them holds. And I'm wondering if the kind of performances that you saw in Hrithik Da's films had gave you some ideas, not to take, but even to argue against.
Yeah, because Tinda's films, you find especially those characters who came up, after partition, they came as settlers here and refugees here. They are so real. They are so real because he had experienced it. It's very much raw in his mind, in his attitude also. So it is very genuine. And I could imagine that he could infuse that spirit into the actors. And there is no falsehood about how they behave, talk, and conduct themselves. So that is very natural. As for me, being a theatre person, I knew exactly how to handle artists, because I don't stand back and say you go ahead and you act this role. I never do that. So I tell my artists, and I in fact rehearse them several times. You cannot imagine there is any spontaneity there. I don't ask my actors to read my script. I don't allow that. That way. Because it should not affect my integrated approach. Because if they start interpreting the role differently, it will fall apart. So you have to keep this unity intact. So this is only way. I never tell, because they have to be good artists, of course. In a particular scene, I explain the scene to them and then take this sequence and shoot it. Because some of the very experienced artists sometimes feel a little upset when I take the number of takes. So I very quietly go and tell them, your audience is not going to know, not going to have any idea about which take is they are seeing. So some of the artists, they understand why I take several takes, because and they keep performing better with new instruction given, new help given, always. And invariably, sometimes there are occasions when the actor asks you, sir, I am not able to do this. Will you show me how to do it? Then I'll show them how to do it. Because I'm basically an actor. Yes, I don't do acting anymore because past something. That's where my theatre experience comes in handy. Yes.
There was something when I first saw your film Mukam Mukam, and then of course I had seen Ali Batayam earlier. There is something in the composition of these films, how you make your composition.
Yes.
And I thought, what is Adur doing? How is he doing this? And one of the things that you notice about Adur's compositions is that they open and close. They're not there just complete. He will allow a certain movement of a person, let's say, but sometimes even of light. That the light changes in a scene. What you are seeing in front of you, suddenly your eyes will go and look at the back. So there is always an opening and closing that is happening in your compositions. Now, of course, Hrithik did it in his very different way. First of all, it was the wide-angle lens that he was working with. And he wanted to, you get the feeling that he's really tearing the world open. He wants you to see more. And he's really pushing the frame.
Yes.
And of course that gives you a great depth of field. And the kind of play that he brings into the foreground, the background, the infinity, is always a joy to see. Nature and the universe becomes a part of his cinema. Nature is very important.
Very important.
In your films too.
Day before yesterday I watched a couple of films just to be reminded about the thing. And these compositions are fantastic. In fact, so beautiful, and he also was good in composing music. These are great gifts, one has with you. And everybody knows that he was too extreme for politics also. So they couldn't contain him, within the party. And he had to go out of it. But he had the same attitude to everything, to revolutionize the language of cinema, to revolutionize the concepts. This was remarkable. And at times he may have difference of opinion about certain things that he does, because he goes to the very height, and then at times it goes low also. Because it happened, for instance, in Subarnarekha, I was very upset when the last scene is extended. He starts after this suicide thing. He stays there for too long. I just couldn't take it. Because it is our personal attitude. Because maybe what he did want to show was the catharsis from such a tragedy, how cathartic it is to change. But I couldn't contain it. It's a great film, I love that film. But I was worried about this part. It happens.
I would like to, from what you have just said, I would just like to ask you something, which I think for us, young filmmakers, I think even for our audience is very important. Every filmmaker, in a way of speaking, is creating a world. It is a world that we want to live in, and we are hoping that through our films we can create an aspiration in all of us to sort of, work towards that world. Satyajit Ray created a certain world. Ritik Da has created another world. I'm wondering, as a student of both these filmmakers, there is ethics, there's psychology, there's philosophy, there is the craft of cinema. We are struggling with all these things. For you, when you make a frame, or you put two frames together, obviously, you are creating a vision that you carry within yourself. Does this vision for you have a resonance with with Ray or with Ghatak? Do you think there is something in dialogue with them?
Well, see, as a student of cinema, I've seen masterworks from the very beginning of cinema. I've seen through decades how cinema grew, and how the art of cinema developed, how the aesthetics of cinema improved, how the technology has improved. It has completely changed, in fact. You cannot even say it has improved. The technology has changed. Because cinema filmmaking was, in a way, I used to feel proud that my films were handmade, because I touch everything in my film, because it is like handicrafts. Today you cannot say that. Cinema is no more palpable. There is nothing that you can touch, you can feel. It's all in a box. It sometimes opens, sometimes it doesn't. So it is like a sutra. So cinema has changed, and then everybody is making a movie, and without a mind behind it. This is the problem. For a not many decades, there was a mystery about cinema. Because, as you know, we are going to a remote place and shoot a film for 30 days, 35 days. You shoot at a stretch, and you don't know what happened to your film that you have shot, and you send it to lab. Lab processes it, and there can be a problem either at the developing stage, or at the stage of printing. Anything can happen to the work until you finally see the print in projection. Not final print, but the brushes. Until then, you are worried about what result you got. So that was a mystery. And very often, at least a few instances have been there for me that I found something very unhappy about the way the shot was taken, etc. So I go back to reshoot those sequences. So I make sure that, because normally you shoot on real occasions, so I make sure that nothing has changed in between. When you go back there, it should not happen that it's all changed. So there's a lot of tension. I remember Ray used to worry about it. He shot a part of his film. Even a quarter way through, he had to stop because there was no finance. He had a couple of worries. One worry was the girl who was acting, the elder girl, the daughter. She may mature and may change her look. The old lady who was there, and she may any day die. And these were the real worries for him. Fortunately, when we went back, nothing had changed. People were there. The village was still holding, etc. So these are our worries. We carry our worries with us. Even when you are not making a film, you are worried about not making a film. When you are making the film, you are all the time worrying about what you are doing. So during the day you may have shot, all the day you may have shot something sequences. In the night you cannot sleep because you are worried about whether I was properly doing it, etc. All these details. But midnight you get all that. And also I have to plan for the next day. So you can hardly sleep. I hardly sleep during my work, shooting particularly. The most, in a way, what gets you through the process is the spirit, nothing else. So, to have interest in your work, you have to be doing something very challenging, very important. You should feel that immediacy about the whole thing. So, all these excitements, all this, your attention to all these details comes from the fact that there have been great works of cinema that you have been exposed to. You don't want to fall lesser, at any stage. So even the script I write, I don't copy my script. My script is just a reference. I work, my films are better than my scripts, always. Because I allow an organic growth to what I wrote. But still, until you completely finish your film, until that time, your worry is, you carry it with you. All kinds of worries. Yes. So filmmaking is such a demanding job. I believe that there is no other art that man has invented which can be called superior to cinema. Cinema is the ultimate art form man has invented. Because it takes in everything. As a filmmaker, it is not enough that you have learned technology. It is not enough that you have read some books. That's not enough. You have to be in it. You have to get drowned in it. Yes. Manananda used to say to the students in the institute that you should dream cinema. You should talk cinema, and you should get immersed in cinema. Then only you make sense. He also used to say, I hope I can quote it. He used to say, you tell me the style of a man, the style of somebody's living. I can tell you the kind of films he will be making. Yes. Manananda is somebody who kept on improving on himself. And then he came to the very top.
I was thinking, sorry.
Yes. Please.
I was thinking, Arjuna, that when you say cinema, is the art.
Yes.
Not only of our time, but it is the highest of arts.
Yes.
It takes all these elements into
Yes,
it.
yes.
One of the things that I've always felt about Hrithik Das cinema is that every element in his films, whether it is this immense sky that you see in his films, or these great bodies of water, and then the earth, the way he shoots earth or trees, all these elements are actually saying something to us, and they are saying, from my point of view, they are saying that unless we are changed, we are transformed, we rethink again how we look at life, in our films. Our film otherwise is a betrayal. What is happening more and more today, I think, is that, you will excuse me for saying this, but since we are here at the Calcutta International Film Festival, I think it's an important point to make, that many a young filmmaker today use elements as instruments, to make a point, rather than allow the film to grow and, as you said, find itself. If you were to say a few words to the young filmmakers today, what might you say?
I don't like giving any advice, because you should not take any advice from anybody. You have to find your own path. In fact, while you appreciate your at whatever stage of your life, while you appreciate good work, that does not mean you should imitate it. The inspiration should be used to discover yourself, what you can do with the life you have lived and society in which you have lived. So you have to live. Every day I am concerned about so many things in my life around me. So people think, as you said, the way Kathak was using nature. Now look at the commercial films, there's no nature there. Only people are sitting and talking, or maybe they run around the trees. There is no real life show, not at all, no life, no shadow of life. In fact, there is a theory amongst the successful commercial filmmakers. They say that the farther the film is from real life, the better prospects are there for its success. This is a theory. It's a theory which they believe in. So they make sure that there is no shadow of any reality in it. So they are giving you not even dreams, I think they are nightmares in terms of cinema. Because their excuse is that you work all the day, you are tired, you want to be entertained. It is not entertainment, it is just punishment. So you are taken out of your real life, and then you are told all lies, and you come out to a world which is untrue. There is a big depression that takes over. So we should not lie. As filmmakers, we should never lie to an audience. You have to treat the audience as mature beings who can really watch your film, judge your film. They may accept or reject it. That's a different case. Because it's not necessary that you become popular. Popularity is not a measure of good work of art. There can be a very stupid film becoming very popular, And the more stupid it is, the better chance for popularity. So that's what happens. In such a situation, as I said, he was saying that, I started by saying that here is the lamb I have sacrificed on the altar of cinema. This jokingly he said that, but then it is true. He is sacrificing himself. He had sacrificed himself on the altar of cinema. That's what happened. Yes.
When I look at a film like Tita Shakti Nodina, and Habib Bhai is here, who is the producer of the film. I must say that even after watching it, I don't know, close to 100 times, the film remains a mystery to me. I go back to it like I would go back to a mother You know, or I go back to it as I would go to the sea, or I would climb a mountain. You know. But it remains a mystery to me. Every time something emerges from me that I feel has transformed my life again. I know that now you are planning your next film. Adhur, when you think of your work, what is it that you feel you have to leave with us in your film?
It's a very good question. No, see, from time to time, I take a long interval between films. Because basically each film reflects in some way my concerns. Basically concerned about things that are around us, around one's own life, and also the society we live in, the country in which we live. All this will get reflected in your work. You respond to it in a completely different way. You are not going to, you fill it with slogans, not at all. It has to be very quietly told, it has to be quietly understood. It should seep into some people's minds. They may not suddenly get up and react to it, and they may not. But you carry this film with you. That's very important. It forms a part of your culture. That's very important. It's not that you can leave behind in the cinema when you see a film and go out. The audience should take it with them. That's very important. And if I have nothing to say, then I wouldn't make a film. Yes, because it is almost 10 years since I made my last film. So people keep asking me, so you are not making any more films? I tell them, look, I have not given up. But then I may make a film, quite possible. That's all.
Well, Adhur, we really look forward to your next film.
Thank you.
As we hope we'll continue our conversations with you. And I wonder, Gautam, if you might have a few things to say.
Well, what I have listened from you and Adhur, I can say only one thing. All these elements whisper. It whispers. And in between, when she said that when I don't make films, I think it still makes films. It happens with me too. When you don't make films physically, and exactly what he said that we have been doing, it's our handwork, own work. It's like from a clay you create a sculpture. That's filmmaking, your love for cinema. And actually, when you don't make film physically or shoot, but film elements, film mise-en-scene, whatever is there, it always works in you, haunts you, and you suffer. While making a film, you suffer. In between, you also suffer. And that's how you can reach to another dream. That's I think, we filmmakers, and we have been sort of making film for so many years, and I've seen the changes, as Adhur said, technology change of perception of filmmakers and the audience as well. So it's very interesting that, cinema was born with a certain dichotomy, where technology dominates. There's a change of technology, then the market force says, okay, no silent cinema, sound. No black and white, color. No analog, digital. And we filmmakers, we try our best to utilize the new form, new technology, to fulfill our dream, to fulfill something, which is cinema. So I think cinema will remain, but technology has completely changed the attention level of audience. You see in the theater, people watch film and also play with the mobile. What to do? You can't blame them. It has become a habit in your system. But still, the magic of cinema continues. Should we ask the floor?